Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Heartbeat Narratives. My name is Molly, and I'm your host. And this week, we turn one. Our podcast is officially 1 year old. Mahalo, everyone, for tuning in for the last 12 months. And for those of you who are new, thank you so much for joining us. Today's episode is a little bit different. I have been receiving requests all year long for this one guest to come on. And today he's finally here, the most requested guest for Heartbeat Narratives, the one and only Amund. He's been part of my life for a very long time, and we're going to get into all the things, all of his interests. He's a man of many talents, whether he is exploring his love of adrenaline, to experimenting with cooking, to building furniture. This guy does it all. So I hope you enjoy this one, and thank you so much for being part of this podcast journey with me. So aloha, Amund. Thank you for coming tonight.
Aloha. Thanks for having me.
So it's a Monday night in December. It's not quite New Year's yet, but in anticipation of next week and the 1 year anniversary of the podcast, I felt like it was time that you finally came on.
I know. I'm happy to come on and do this.
You've seen behind the scenes for so long, and now you're on this side of it. What does it feel like to have the microphone in front of you?
It feels like I'm in the spotlight. It's different, but yeah, I've seen the process, so I'm familiar with it, but this feels different.
Yeah. So the question I ask every guest right off the bat is, where is home for you?
So home right now is in Honolulu, Hawaii, and home is also in Stavanger, Norway, where I'm from. So I have two homes.
What was it like growing up in Norway?
It was good growing up there. I have a great family and friends, and yeah, just a good childhood. And I moved to Hawaii to go to University of Hawaii, on a diving scholarship. That's how I ended up coming out here.
It seems like you're drawn to coastal places, because Stavanger is southern Norway, right on the coast, like a farming community, beautiful beaches, not as much snow as in other parts of Norway. And I know everyone asks you about Northern Lights, but how did Hawaii end up on your radar in the first place?
That's a good question, but everyone knows about Hawaii in the world pretty much, and it has this kind of reputation, or it's tropical islands in the middle of the Pacific with beautiful nature, and just this like idea of it was in my head from childhood, I think. I don't know when I heard about Hawaii for the first time, but everyone knows. So when I learned that there was a university with a diving team, like a Division I diving team, then that piqued my interest. And I guess I saw some other divers that were older than me from Scandinavia going over to the University of Hawaii. And I looked up to them because they were better than me. And then they came back and they were like super tan and super talented. And that just stuck with me. In high school, I did my SAT test to like prep to go to the US to potentially get a scholarship and like dive. It's a unique opportunity that we don't have the same in Norway or in Europe, to go to a school and just like get your education and have a team around you, coaches, like the whole staff. It's set up for you to compete and train, and that's what I wanted to do. It was on my mind that I wanted to continue with diving and have that opportunity to live and study somewhere abroad, and Hawaii was like in the back of my head that I knew that was a possibility. But I reached out to other places too. So it was kind of random, but luck that I ended up here.
That is a really big leap, because you came as an international student Speaking a language that's not your native language, and then going to college and also being on the team, what was that like, your first few months being in Hawaii and diving outdoors? That must have been like a really big adjustment. What were your first impressions?
My first impressions were that it rained way more than I thought. I remember landing here in the evening and I got picked up and it was just like drizzling, dark and humid. I wasn't anticipating that, but diving outside at the facility here was great. It was awesome. Beautiful weather every day, great facility. It was fun to be on a team and just like learning a lot of new things in school too. Be at that age where you're mature enough to like to learn college classes and at the same time training and diving a lot. Definitely some adjustment and like culture shock a little bit. I remember having to slow down because otherwise I would just start sweating so much. In Norway, you have to keep a pace to stay warm. Here, you have to like slow down to stay cool.
And what was it like speaking English so much more?
Yeah, it was fine, but I remember struggling a little bit with expressing myself freely and like having something pop up that I wanted to say and not having the words there right away. Yeah, that was a little bit of a struggle, and like being funny too in English or a foreign language is challenging. One of the last things to click where you like find the humor or you're able to communicate that, because I like telling jokes and expressing that, but in the beginning I remember someone was like, oh, that's not funny, or like, that's a bad joke. Oh, another bad joke by Amund. Okay.
I feel like you have a really dry sense of humor that only certain people will pick up on. So the heart of the conversation is really about what makes your heart beat. What lights you up? What are you obsessed with? What is that for you, Amund?
It's a lot of things, but it is diving. That's always been diving for me. I enjoy doing a lot of different things, but diving is still like the one thing that kind of defines me and has defined my life. That's how I ended up here in Hawaii too. And yeah, I still like to dive myself. I've been doing more coaching lately too, which has been interesting. So yeah, I would say that diving, like springboard and platform diving, makes my heart beat. Not free diving or scuba diving. That's fun too, but yeah, the jumping and twisting and diving headfirst into water.
How did you get into diving in the first place?
I grew up in a family where my mom was a swimmer, so she would always take us to the pool or different pools when we were young and when we were traveling. So I grew up being very comfortable in water. Did swimming a little bit too when I was young, but I just liked more action or adrenaline. So I did gymnastics too. And then diving just kind of happened naturally. It really clicked when we were on vacation in Germany in 2001, and we would go to the pool, and I learned how to do like a front 1.5 of like the 1 meter. I was just watching someone else doing it, and I was like, oh, I want to try that. And so that's what I did. Like, I just got obsessed. Yeah.
I feel like from meeting so many of your friends in the diving community, it draws a certain personality forward. People who are a bit more outgoing and like pushing the envelope of what's physically possible. People who love adrenaline and thrill seeking. Does that apply to you? And what does diving bring out in your personality?
I guess you're right about that observation. I don't think I'm totally like that. A little bit more calm than that. But in terms of what it brings out in my personality, maybe like a meticulous trait where you're just like doing the same kind of motion over and over again and trying to correct it and make it perfect. And then just sticking with it too, I think is a big part of it. You have to be consistent if you want to get to a certain level. I've seen a lot of athletes and divers that are very talented, but the talent only takes you so far because you need to have that consistent training. You have to like be willing to just keep going when it's hard too.
Can you tell me a little bit about what it was like to dive all over the world? You've had a really incredible career diving even before you came to Hawaii for college. What were some of those places that you visited for training camps and competitions and meets and things like that?
Yeah, it is such a small sport that you have to travel to go to meets where there are other good divers, especially when you're from a small place like Norway. Naturally, just once you start competing, you will end up traveling, and that was really special. I went to a lot of places around Europe and then gone to Russia and China, the US. You get to meet a lot of people from other countries, and you get to practice your English, and you become used to traveling too, which is helpful. And yeah, it broadens the mind, when you're young, just to be out traveling without your parents too. So it's like you kind of mature. I remember being so nervous and intimidated, but then you kind of work through it, and it's a process. Yeah, there's a lot of growth there. Just going through that as a teenager, it makes you a more well-rounded person, I guess.
What was it like being in Russia and China?
Yeah, that was interesting too. I don't think I wouldn't have gone to Russia if it hadn't been for my diving. Like, I've never been there for anything else. I went to Russia twice. One time to Moscow, or like a suburb maybe of Moscow. It's called Elektrostal, which I think is electricity and steel is what it translates into. So it was very like kind of industrial looking, and we stayed in it was like a military camp almost, or like there was like a big fence around it, and we trained in this big pool that was cold and old but very well used, and they have a ton of really good divers, and we learned so much from them. It was super hard. They trained really hard, and yeah, that was interesting. And the other place I went was Kazan for the university games in 2013, and that was awesome too. It's like almost like a mini Olympics because there's like all the different sports, and again, the facility was like really nice. Yeah, the whole event was really good. You have a dining hall with all the food that you can eat, and yeah, it was cool. A lot of old cars in Russia, like a lot of nice cars, but then also like these like old Soviet Union era type cars, and the architecture too comes from that era. So that was just interesting to see like that part of the world, and like the emblem of the Soviet Union still on buildings.
Wow. Weird.
Yeah.
Every time I watch the Olympics, I'm always so amazed at the Chinese divers. What was that like being in China? And I know that you had a lot of observations of the Chinese techniques because they're just so incredibly good at what they do. Tell me more.
Yeah, they're so good. It's no coincidence that they're so good because they start young and it's organized. There's schools and training centers, and we had a training camp in Xi'an, I think it's pronounced, before the World Championships in Shanghai in 2011. But yeah, we stayed there and trained with all the kids there, and there were just so many young kids that were so good. Like in any other country, they would have been like the best in that country, and they were like better than me, but they were like 13.
Wow.
So very humbling, and yeah, just super interesting to see how they start. Like the youngest ones couldn't even swim. Like they had a rope around them when they jumped in the water and they were like pulled in.
Like around their waist?
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
okay.
Mm-hmm.
And so they were diving, but they couldn't even swim. That's crazy.
I mean, yeah, that was like the youngest group. Maybe they were like 5 years old or something.
You've shared in the past that you were obsessively watching YouTube videos of all things related to diving. Could you talk a little bit about that? Because I think that's interesting, because to get so good at something, you really put in the research as well.
Yeah, that was like YouTube University for diving before that was even a phrase. This was like, I don't know when YouTube started, but this was like the beginning, I think. At some point, it felt like I had watched all the diving videos on YouTube. It's not the case anymore, but yeah, I would just slow it down or like pause it and then just like really study it. And then it clicked for me. Like, I'm a very visual learner. So I remember watching someone like do entries really well, like no splash, rip entries. And then the next time I went to diving myself, I tried doing that same technique. And then my entries were good. And like my coach was like, wow, that was so good. And other people too, oh, you ripped that. And I was like, wow, that's how you do it. Okay. So yeah, definitely watched a lot of diving videos. And yeah, that's something we used in like coaching too, just like video to show the athlete. And for me, seeing myself dive, it's very revealing and super helpful, because then you actually see what you're doing, but it doesn't always feel like you're doing what you're seeing. So seeing it is like super helpful.
Can you describe a little bit of what diving makes you feel like? Why does it bring you so much joy in the first place? There must be some kind of internal fire that it's stoking.
Yeah, I think the contrast of being really like nervous, scared, focused, say you're on like 10-meter and that's really scary up there. And then you do a dive and you do it well and it happens so fast. And then it's such a big kind of relief and an adrenaline rush too. But then you do it really well and it just feels nice to be able to kind of conquer that and just like be done with it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
A lot of people who are close to you know that you've competed at really high levels. You don't talk about it a lot, but I would love to ask you what it was like to go to the Olympics in 2012 in London.
Yeah, for sure. It was a cool experience. I guess maybe the journey was more fulfilling than just being there, maybe like the 2 years leading up to it. Because I mean, it's just a meet too. Like, you do your dives and it's like any other meet, but it's the best divers in the world, but you're still just competing. There's more people watching, there's more attention, you're on TV, so that's different. But yeah, the journey itself was what I think the biggest lesson was, just like how you can work towards something that might seem unachievable or like a dream. But if you actually put in the work and do your best, then you might get there. That was a cool experience to have as a young person, to be dedicated towards something. I was already talented in training, but I decided to really try really hard to do my best. And there's not that many times in my life where I've had that experience to tell myself to do my best and like actually follow through with it and know with myself, did I do my best? You know, if you did your best. You might say that you did your best, but did you really? Then to actually do your best and then just see where that takes you. That was a cool experience.
How did it even come across your path to think maybe I could go to the Olympics? And what was that manifesting? Maybe manifesting's not the right word, but how did it even get planted as a seed in your mind? And what was that like?
Yeah, I mean, it was something that other people talked about growing up, and coaches and everything was like, oh, like you guys can go to the Olympics in like 8 years. And when you're like 14, that sounds like that's a long time, 8 years. Or when you're like 13 and 12, whatever, it's like feels like a dream, or like, oh yeah, for sure, that'd be cool. but a little bit closer to it. It was lucky, I guess, that I was in a position where I had friends and we were all, four of us were all at the same level, and we had some coaches that sat us down and asked us like, hey, do you guys really want to try and do your best and go to the European Championships and like have a solid performance there? Like, it's in 6 months. Do you want to go full all in on this? If you do it, then we do it. That kind of just stoked a fire for me. This was right after high school, so I had like a gap year where I was training and I didn't have really anything else that I had to do. I did work like a little bit as like a swim instructor and some other things, but it was diving. It was like training. So it was lucky that I could do that. And then, yeah, just kind of learned so much in 6 months, or improved a lot. And then the next goal after that was like World Championships in another 6 months. And then that went really well too. That's when we went to China. And then it was like, wow, like the Olympics is next year. I hadn't really thought about it seriously until then. But then it was like, yeah, let's try that too. That's how that unfolded. It was like during that time, I like wrote down a lot of goals too. And yeah, maybe diving in the Olympics was on there. Probably. But I remember it being like, oh, dive like this many points and that many points and do all these dives. And then, yeah, I found it a few years later and I was like, whoa, like that's cool. I actually did a lot of those things.
I think that's awesome because it was like the original vision board before vision boarding became such a thing. You know, you see it after the fact that it actually worked.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So when you're on the board or the platform at the Olympics, how do you calm yourself down? Because I imagine that that's a really nerve-wracking moment and you're trying so hard to be in your body and present. Could you walk us through what that's like?
Yeah, that's kind of the challenge. In diving, it happens so quickly and it's so easy to make mistakes. And you only have one chance. Like you do multiple dives, but every dive is important. And at that level, you don't really want to miss any of your dives. The training, you just need to have a solid foundation, like need to know what you're doing. You don't want to gamble. So just to have a solid routine, know yourself, like go through the motions or like the training. Trust yourself, just trust your body, stay calm, stay warm, just do your thing. That was kind of my approach, just to, yeah, focus on me. Can't control others, can't control anything else, but just do your job.
And what is the training regimen like when you're getting ready to go to the Olympics? I imagine you're just always thinking about what you're going to be eating, how you're going to be resting, how you're going to be working out. What is that like?
It's definitely just a lot of training. You know, I was still young at that point, so I didn't really have a specific diet or didn't think too much about my rest. You know, I just rested because I was tired. A lot of dryland training, so that's conditioning, strength training, lifting weights and stuff. Probably could have done more of that when I was younger, but yeah, you do a lot of stuff on land. And there's gymnastics like flips and like prepping on like how to do the right takeoff, for instance. You do just like a lot of repetitions of front flips, back flips, inward flips, reverse flips, stuff like that. And then stretching too is really important. And then there's the water practice where you practice your dives that you will compete, but there's oftentimes a lot of build up to that too. To do a difficult dive on 10 meter, for instance, you want to be ready to do that dive. You don't really just go up and do it right away unless it's like before the competition, or even then, like a lot of divers like to do just lead ups. So that will be like something that has like components of the big dive. So that's like the takeoff and the come out and the entry and just that technique. And then you put it together once you take it up to like 10 meter. I did the 10 meter in the Olympics, but yeah, it's similar for 1 meter and 3 meter too. You do a lot of like lead ups, practice details, like even if it's just like the way you go in the water, like entries, do that over and over again. Just jumps, straight jumps, just to have the right takeoff and the balance and just the way you jump off the board. You want everything to be like perfect before you like make it more complicated. So really training those foundational skills it's a big part of it. It was just a lot of training, watching videos and just like thinking about it a lot, being obsessed. Yeah, that's how the training looks like.
And have you ever wiped out and done a belly flop into the pool?
Yes, unfortunately. I have. The worst one was from 10 meter, just
ouch,
landed flat on my stomach. Not fun at all. But that's the worst case scenario too. You could hit your head. I never hit my head on the board. Or you could be like super unlucky and have a really bad landing. But most of the time, belly flopping is as bad as it gets. And it really hurts, but it's still water. So I walked away from it. It's just a bad memory at this point. Mm-hmm. But that's what's interesting about diving too, because the perceived level of danger is really high. Whereas in reality, it's not really that dangerous. There's more injuries in other sports, like contact sports, that everyone thinks of as not dangerous, not scary. But yeah, there's not that many like injuries, or there's less injuries, I would say, in diving. But it feels really scary. It goes against your instincts to be that high up and jump off.
I've stood on the platform before at 10 meters, and it just feels insane to be like, oh yeah, I'm just gonna jump off in the water and land perfectly and not make a splash from that height. And I'm not a diver, but just standing up there feels really scary. So as you're coaching student athletes now, how are you coaching them through that fear? Because it seems like very incremental baby steps to like build up to the higher heights and the more difficult dives.
Yeah, I think that's the key, is the baby steps. You're going to have to take a leap of faith, like the first time you're doing a new dive, but you want to try and be prepared for it. And having done all the baby steps before that, as much as you can, that's the key.
I'm really curious, what was it like representing Norway on an international scale?
That was cool too. Got to meet a lot of people. You know, everyone's kind of invested. People from Norway and like the news, and they're like invested in you and want you to do well. So yeah, it was a fun experience. Got a lot of gear and clothing and got to meet a lot of the other athletes. So yeah, it felt special. It felt like you were part of something bigger, like a team. Yeah, diving is like an individual sport, and it was only me as a diver representing Norway.
What was it like just having people from all over the world be everywhere? I know that you weren't at the opening ceremony because of timing with something else, but just being in like the Olympic Village, and what was the energy like at the Olympics?
Yeah, it's interesting to be around that many people and athletes all shapes and forms. So being in the dining hall, you just see sprinters or weightlifters, swimmers or divers or gymnasts, and they all look different and they're like so specialized. So it's just interesting seeing like the skinniest people and like the biggest people. Yeah, it was a cool environment. Lots of security.
Lots of security. So this past summer, you participated in the Masters World Championships in Singapore for aquatic sports. And I think a lot of people in your diving circle and community were like, oh, Amund's having a comeback after 10 years of not actively competing. What was it like to be in Singapore and revive all of your diving skills at an international level?
Yeah, I didn't revive all of the skills.
Okay.
But it was really fun. It felt like old times, just being at the pool, competing again, having the nervousness, and being tired too. Like it takes a lot of energy to be all day at the pool and then compete and just do all your dives, and then you have multiple competitions over multiple days. But yeah, I really enjoyed it. It was low stakes. It's masters, so it's pretty much just for fun. It was always just for fun, but felt a little bit more serious when I was younger, so I enjoyed it a lot.
Aside from diving, I know that you have a lot of other interests. What else makes your heart beat when you have downtime and time to tinker and you're not working? What else do you like to do?
I like to play guitar. That's one thing that comes to mind. Just for fun. It's just something nice to do. It's not screen time and like taps into a different part of your brain too. So I can do that for a few hours sometimes. When I get into it, the time just passes really fast.
What do you like to play?
It's just acoustic guitar. It could be any song that I heard or want to learn, different genres. And yeah, I've been trying to sing too. And right now it's been a song called Starting Over by Chris Stapleton that I've been playing just for the last couple of weeks. When I first started playing guitar, it was a lot of Johnny Cash because it's so simple. 3 chords, and it sounds exactly like he would play it because all his songs are pretty easy to play.
So as we wrap up the conversation, is there anything else you'd like to share about what brings you joy or following your passion, following your talent?
I guess bringing it back to like doing your best and just going for something that you enjoy doing. I think that's important, and going all in on something it's a worthwhile experience to have. It can be anything. It's easy to fall into routines and not wanting to go out of your comfort zone, but having those like small experiments with yourself where it's like, oh, I'm going to do my best in this thing for 6 months, 3 months, whatever, and then reevaluate after that, I think can be an interesting experience for anyone.
I feel like I've gotten a little bit of that experience just this past year doing so much podcasting. I was like, I'm going to do my best to put out at least 20 episodes and interview all these interesting people. And so I feel like this has been me doing my best for 12 months.
Yeah, that's awesome.
In this new area, to be around someone like you who has literally dove in and done the research, done the exercises, made it part of your life and routine to become a really excellent diver. It's inspiring to know that it's possible. And so even if it's applied to like a different hobby or career or passion, it is possible to just really give it your all and see what unfolds, because...
And if it's not possible, you'll find out.
Yeah.
If you know that you did your best and it didn't work out, then at least you can know with yourself, like, okay, I tried my best. I couldn't do it, or it didn't work out. Instead of having that lingering feeling or thinking that, oh, I could have, what if, to just know with yourself in your heart that, oh, I left it all on the table. I did what I could. That's what matters, I think.
There's so much peace in putting in 100%. It's a powerful thing to know that you've lived fully. And I think a lot of us live within these like self-limiting boundaries of fear, of not wanting to put ourselves out there or be bad at something. And yet, if we feel that way our entire lives and we never make that leap, then we're just falling into the trap of those self-limiting beliefs and then living like a half-life. So interviewing people who follow what they love, it's opened up this entire world of what it means to be 100% authentic within yourself. So anyway, I could go on, but this has been really fun.
Yeah. Thank you for having me on.
Thank you so much for saying yes. And I know this was a unexpected surprise last minute interview. So mahalo everyone for tuning in. I'm so excited to kick off 2026 with all of you, and we'll catch you on the next episode. Aloha.